Something is moving, down in the dark, miles below the surface of the sea. Something is drifting through the water. You can't see it, but it sees you in its own way. It pulses with a cold blue light, a slow rhythmic glow, like a lantern being carried by someone through a corridor with no walls and no floor and no end. The pressure down here is immense, thousands of pounds per square inch, enough to crush a car like paper. There is no sunlight, no warmth, no familiar sound, only the endless press of cold water. And yet, something lives here. Many things live here. Creatures that have evolved over hundreds of millions of years to survive in conditions that would kill most living things within seconds. Animals with no eyes. Animals that are mostly mouth. Animals that carry their own light, small, flickering stars in the permanent night of the ocean. We have explored less than 20% of the Earth's oceans. The deep sea, the vast, lightless world below the sunlit surface, remains one of the most mysterious places on our planet. Tonight, we are going down, slowly, gently, through layer after layer of shadow and silence, until we find the things that live where no light reaches. But before we begin, I'm always curious, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And if you find yourself drawn to explorations like this, you're welcome to subscribe. The ocean begins simply enough. Near the surface, the water is blue and warm. Sunlight filters down in shafts, illuminating coral and darting fish and the gentle sway of seagrass. It is familiar, beautiful even. The kind of ocean you might picture when you close your eyes. But even here, things are stranger than they seem. The Sunlit Zone, what scientists call the epipelagic zone, extends from the surface down to about 200 meters. This is where most of what we know about ocean life lives. Dolphins, tuna, sea turtles, the world of coral reefs, the creatures you've seen in photographs. But 200 meters down, something changes. The light begins to fail. Not all at once. It dims. The blue deepens. The warmth fades. And the creatures you find here begin to look different, slightly unusual, slightly off, as if the rules of the surface world no longer apply quite as firmly. This is the beginning of something. A descent that takes us through some of the most extraordinary and least understood ecosystems on the planet. And the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. Between 200 and 1,000 meters below the surface lies what oceanographers call the Mesopelagic Zone. Most people know it by another name, the Twilight Zone. It is a strange place, not fully dark, not fully lit. The last traces of sunlight filter down here as a faint, cold glow. Barely enough to see by, barely enough to navigate. The water temperature drops sharply as you descend. The pressure begins to build, and the creatures here have evolved to exist in this half-world. They are built for ambiguity, for living between light and shadow. One of the most remarkable is the hatchetfish. At first glance, the hatchetfish looks almost comical. A tiny silver creature, barely the length of your finger, with a body so flat and narrow, it resembles the blade of a small axe. Its eyes are enormous for its size, pointed upward, designed to catch the faint traces of light filtering down from above. But what makes the hatchetfish extraordinary is not its shape. It's something on its belly. Rows of tiny organs, called photophores, that produce a faint, downward-facing light. This light matches the dim glow coming from the surface above, and it is the hatchetfish's disguise. Any predator swimming deeper and looking up would see the hatchetfish's silhouette against the faint light above. But with photophores glowing on its underside, the fish essentially disappears, its own light mimicking the sky, erasing its shadow. This survival strategy is called counter-illumination, and the hatchetfish has mastered it. But the Twilight Zone is full of strategies like this. Remarkable, improbable solutions to the problem of surviving in a world with almost no light. Take the firefly squid of Japan. Each autumn, millions of these tiny squid, no larger than your thumb, migrate toward the surface in the waters near Toyama Bay. And as night falls, they begin to glow. The whole bay turns blue. Millions of bioluminescent points of light swirling under the surface, pulsing and shifting like a living aurora borealis beneath the water. Local fishermen have watched this spectacle for generations. Scientists have studied it for decades. And even now, there is something about seeing it, this great, rippling blue light beneath a dark sky, that stops people in their tracks. Something that feels less like biology and more like magic. Bioluminescence. The production of light by living organisms is not rare in the deep ocean. It is everywhere. Scientists estimate that more than 76% of deep-sea animals produce their own light in some form. Bacteria, fish, squid, jellyfish, worms, even some sharks. The deep ocean is not simply dark, it is filled with light, just not the kind we're used to. The chemistry of bioluminescence is elegant in its simplicity. A molecule called luciferin, from the Latin word for light bearer, reacts with oxygen inside a living cell. The reaction produces energy. That energy is released not as heat, as most chemical reactions do, but as light. Cold light, pure light, light with almost no wasted energy. And living creatures use that light for many different purposes. Some use it as camouflage, like the hatchetfish. Some use it to attract mates, a specific sequence of flashes that signal species and readiness in the dark. Some use it to lure prey. Some use it to confuse or blind predators. And some seem to use it in ways we don't yet fully understand. There are creatures in the deep that pulse with patterns so complex and rhythmic. The researchers have wondered if they are communicating, passing messages through the dark in a language made entirely of light. One of the most haunting inhabitants of the Twilight Zone is an animal called the siphonophore. The name sounds technical, but the thing itself is extraordinary. A siphonophore is not exactly one animal. It is a colony. Sometimes thousands of individual organisms fuse together into a single coordinated body. Each individual, called a zooid, has a specific job. Some swim, some sting, some digest, some reproduce. None of them can survive independently. Together they form something that functions as a single creature, but stretches in some species to lengths of 40 or even 50 meters. 50 meters. That is longer than a blue whale. That makes the siphonophore, by some measures, the longest animal on Earth. And yet most people have never heard of it. It drifts through the water like a slowly pulsing ribbon, translucent, delicate, trailing long tentacles lined with stinging cells. When prey, small fish or shrimp, blunders into those tentacles, the response is immediate and coordinated. The colony acts as one. There is something philosophically strange about the siphonophore, something that makes you reconsider what it means to be an individual at all. Is each zooid a separate life, or is the colony the life? Is there a difference? The ocean does not answer those questions. It just keeps drifting. As we descend past the Twilight Zone, past 1,000 meters, the last traces of sunlight disappear entirely. We have entered the midnight zone. The mesopelagic gives way to the bathypelagic zone, the open ocean between 1,000 and 4,000 meters. Here, the water temperature hovers just above freezing. The pressure is extraordinary, and the darkness is complete, absolute, total. The kind of darkness that feels physical. If you were to turn off every light and sit in a windowless room, truly dark, truly silent, you would still hear your own heartbeat. You would still feel the air on your skin. You would still know you were somewhere. In the midnight zone of the ocean, there is no such comfort. And yet, life persists. Life persists here in forms that seem to push against the boundaries of what biology is supposed to look like. Take the anglerfish. If you have seen it in photographs, you know the image. A dark, misshapen body, an enormous mouth filled with long, needle-like teeth, eyes that seem too small, too pale, as if sight was an afterthought in a world where there is nothing to see, and above its head, curling forward on a long, flexible spine, a glowing lure. That lure, the esca as scientists call it, glows with bioluminescent bacteria that live inside a small bulb of flesh. The anglerfish cannot turn the light on and off exactly, but it can control the lure's movement, dangling it in the dark like a tiny lantern. Any curious creature drawn toward the light finds the mouth. The anglerfish's jaw can unhinge to swallow prey up to twice its own size. Its stomach can stretch to accommodate a meal far larger than itself. In a world where food is scarce and encounters are rare, the anglerfish has evolved to never waste an opportunity. There are more than 200 species of anglerfish, ranging from small, almost delicate creatures to the monstrous deep-sea versions that have become iconic in their grotesque beauty. But perhaps the strangest thing about the anglerfish is not its hunting method. It is its reproduction. The anglerfish we picture, the terrifying luminous predator, is always female. The female is the hunter. The female carries the lure. But the male anglerfish is something else entirely. He is tiny, a fraction of the female's size. He has no lure, no formidable teeth. He cannot even feed himself as an adult. His digestive system is rudimentary at best. His entire purpose, in the deep and the dark, is to find a female. When a male anglerfish finds a female, guided by chemical signals she releases into the water, he bites into her body, and he never lets go. Over time, the tissues of the male and female fuse together. His circulatory system merges with hers. His body slowly degenerates, losing organs, losing structure, until he becomes, essentially, a small reproductive appendage attached to her side. Some female anglerfish have been found with not one, but several males attached. A living record of encounters in the dark. It is one of the most extreme examples of sexual dimorphism in the animal kingdom, a form of reproduction so unusual that when the first specimens were studied, scientists initially assumed the attached males were parasites of a different species. Entirely. The deep ocean is full of surprises like this. Rules that apply on the surface. Rules about what bodies should look like, how animals should reproduce, how ecosystems should function, simply don't hold the same way down here. The deep ocean writes its own rules, and we are only beginning to read them. In the midnight zone, food is scarce. The great marine snowfall, the constant drift of organic particles down from the surface, provides some sustenance. But hunting is a constant challenge in a world where encounters are rare and energy must be preserved. Animals here have evolved bodies that minimize waste and maximize opportunity. The gulper eel, also called the pelican eel, is a creature that looks like nothing so much as a swimming mouth. Its jaw is grotesquely enlarged, capable of opening to nearly 90 degrees, like a great hinged trap. Its body tapers to a long, thin tail that ends in a small, glowing tip, possibly used to lure prey toward that vast opening. When a gulper eel captures prey, it inflates like a balloon, its stomach and jaw expanding dramatically to accommodate whatever it has caught. It cannot be selective. It cannot afford to be. In the abyss, a meal is a meal. There is something almost sorrowful about the gulper eel, this enormous, gaping creature drifting through the dark. Its exaggerated proportions make it look less like a living animal and more like an idea of one, a child's drawing of a monster brought to bizarre life in the deep. And yet it is perfectly adapted. Every strange feature serves a purpose. Then there is the barley fish, perhaps one of the most visually striking creatures in the deep ocean. At first glance, it appears to have a transparent head, a dome of clear, gelatinous flesh sitting above its face, through which you can see two glowing green cylinders pointing upward. Those are its eyes, enormous tubular eyes, pointing directly upward through that translucent skull, designed to detect the faint silhouettes of creatures swimming above it in the dim light of the mesopelagic zone. For a long time, scientists believed the barley's eyes were fixed in place, permanently staring upward, unable to look forward. But deeper observation, conducted with remotely operated vehicles, revealed something remarkable. The eyes can rotate. The barley can look upward through its transparent head when scanning for silhouettes. And then, when prey is detected, it can tilt those great green eyes forward, shifting its gaze to track whatever it intends to eat. The transparency of the head is thought to allow the eyes to swivel freely, an architectural solution as elegant as any in nature. Watching footage of the barley fish, filmed in the wild by researchers, there is something almost surreal about it. The clear dome, the green eyes, the quiet way it drifts, watching, waiting. It does not look like an animal. It looks like something imagined. There is an animal in the deep ocean called the vampire squid. Its scientific name, Vampiroteuthis infernalis, translates quite literally to vampire squid from hell. And while that sounds like something from a horror film, the creature itself is surprisingly gentle. The vampire squid is not actually a squid. It occupies its own taxonomic order, something between a squid and an octopus, an ancient lineage that diverged from both hundreds of millions of years ago. It is, in a sense, a living fossil, a creature whose body plan has changed relatively little over vast stretches of geological time. Its coloring ranges from jet black to a deep purplish red, depending on the light and the angle. Its eyes are a startling blue-green, and its webbed arms, which connect in a cloak-like membrane between them, give it a dramatic, caped silhouette. The vampire part of its name comes from this. When threatened, the vampire squid pulls its webbed arms up over its body, inverting itself like an inside-out umbrella, wrapping itself in darkness. But unlike most deep-sea predators, the vampire squid does not hunt live prey. It is a detritivore, feeding on the slow drift of organic particles that fall from above, filtering marine snow from the water with filaments on its arms. The most fearsome-looking creature in the deep ocean is, in truth, a gentle drifter feeding on the slow fall of particles through the dark. We pass through 400 meters, 600, 800. The water grows colder, the world grows quieter, and the creatures we encounter become harder to categorize, harder to place into familiar boxes of biology and behavior. At around 500 meters, we might encounter something called a coelacanth jellyfish, except that is not really its name. In the deep ocean, there are creatures so rarely seen that they barely have common names yet. Scientists log them, give them Latin designations, and add them to growing catalogs of the unknown. There are jellyfish in the deep ocean that glow in colors unlike anything seen in the shallower world. Deep reds, vibrant purples, electric blues. Many deep-sea creatures lack the red pigment that would make them visible in certain wavelengths of light, rendering them effectively invisible in the limited frequency bioluminescent light produced by their neighbors. It is a different kind of invisibility, not camouflage exactly, but a kind of optical absence. You are there. You are swimming, feeding, living. But in the specific frequencies of light that surround you, you do not exist. There is something quietly philosophical about that, about existing in a world where the conditions of light mean that others simply cannot perceive you. The deep ocean is full of these quiet philosophies. For centuries, sailors told stories about it. A creature of enormous size, a tentacled monster lurking beneath the waves. The Kraken of Norse mythology. The great sea beast of ancient maps, something vast and unknowable moving through the deep. And then, in 2004, it was photographed for the first time. A team of Japanese researchers working at a depth of around 900 meters in the North Pacific deployed a camera attached to a baited line. They waited, and they waited. And then, slowly, deliberately, something came. The giant squid, Architeuthis, an animal known from dead specimens and fragments for decades. Washed ashore, pulled up in fishing nets, found in the stomachs of sperm whales with its distinctive suckers leaving circular scars on the whale's skin, but never filmed alive, never seen in its natural habitat, never watched as it moved and hunted in the world it actually occupied. The photographs were grainy, the images imperfect, but there it was, enormous arms reaching toward the camera, moving with a slow deliberateness that was both graceful and alien. An animal that had lived in the imagination of humanity for thousands of years, finally confirming itself as real. The giant squid can grow to remarkable lengths, up to 13 meters or more, including the 2 long feeding tentacles that extend beyond the cluster of 8 arms. Its eyes are the largest of any living animal on Earth, up to 30 centimeters across. Dinner plate-sized eyes, designed to detect the faint bioluminescent flashes of the deep ocean, or perhaps to spot the great silhouette of a sperm whale descending to hunt it. Because the giant squid is hunted, sperm whales dive to extraordinary depths to find them, and the evidence of these battles is written on the skin of the whales, circular scar patterns left by the squid's suckers as it struggled to escape. We do not know much about giant squid behavior. We have only glimpsed them a handful of times. Their mating rituals are unknown. Their lifespan is uncertain. How they communicate, if they communicate, is a mystery. What we know is that they exist, that they are large, that they are capable, and that they share the deep ocean with the largest toothed predator on Earth in a contest of hunters that has played out in the dark for millions of years. There is something deeply satisfying about the giant squid, about the fact that a creature so large, so genuinely extraordinary, could exist in our oceans, could have been real all along, and remain essentially unseen until recent decades. What else, we must wonder, is still down there? Below 4,000 meters, we enter the abyss. The abyssal zone covers more of the Earth's surface than any other single habitat. The vast, flat expanse of the ocean floor, the Abyssal Plains, stretch across the deep sea like an enormous silent plateau. It is cold, barely above freezing. The pressure here is 400 to 600 atmospheres, the equivalent of having 50 or 60 jumbo jets stacked on top of your body. The water is still. The darkness is complete. And the floor is covered in life. Not in the dense, colorful abundance of a coral reef, but in its own quiet way. A slow, patient ecology built on the resources that drift down from above. Marine snow, the constant gentle fall of organic particles, dead cells, fecal matter, the tiny bodies of surface organisms, drifts down through the water column for weeks before settling. By the time it arrives at the abyss, it is ancient and sparse, but it is enough. Sea cucumbers roam the abyssal floor in enormous numbers, slow, elongated creatures that ingest sediment and extract whatever nutrition the marine snow has deposited. They move so slowly, they appear almost static. But time-lapse footage reveals them plodding steadily across the mud, trails behind them marking their patient passage. Brittle stars stretch across the abyssal sediment, their long, thin arms radiating from a small central body, moving with an unsettling, sinuous motion that looks almost too fluid for a creature without a spine. Deep-sea isopods, enormous crustaceans that look unmistakably like giant pill bugs, crawl through the darkness, scavenging whatever organic material they can find. The giant isopod, Bathynomus giganteus, can grow to over 40 centimeters. If you have ever seen a woodlouse, those tiny curling creatures found under garden stones, imagine one the size of a football. The giant isopod is a reminder of something fascinating about the deep ocean, a phenomenon known as deep-sea gigantism. In cold, deep water, animals tend to grow larger than their shallow water relatives. The reasons are not entirely understood. Something to do with cold temperatures, slowing metabolism, increased oxygen levels in cold water, or the pressure of evolutionary selection in an environment where larger size may offer advantages in food, storage, and reproduction. The result is a world where familiar body plans, the isopod, the worm, the sea spider, exist at scales that feel genuinely uncanny. Giant sea spiders with leg spans of over 60 centimeters drift through the darkness. Amphipods, tiny shrimp-like creatures at the surface, grow to the size of a human hand in the deep. The abyss is a funhouse mirror of familiar biology. But the abyssal floor is not uniformly bare. Every so often, something extraordinary happens. A whale dies. As a whale's body sinks to the ocean floor, a process called whale fall, it does not simply decompose, it becomes a habitat, an ecosystem. In the first stage, mobile scavengers arrive within hours. Hagfish, ancient, eel-like creatures with no true jaw and a remarkable ability to produce enormous quantities of slime, swarm the carcass in their dozens. Sleeper sharks circle. Rat-tail fish gather. Over weeks and months, the soft tissue is consumed, and then the enrichment opportunist stage begins. Polychaete worms, crustaceans, and other invertebrates colonizing the exposed bones and whatever organic matter remains. Then, in the final and most extraordinary stage, the bones themselves are consumed. Bacteria within the bone marrow begin breaking down the lipids, the fats stored there. This bacterial activity creates an environment low in oxygen and rich in hydrogen sulfide. And this draws a community of organisms that depend not on sunlight or marine snow, but on chemical energy. A single whale carcass can support a unique community of organisms for decades. It is a temporary oasis, an island of life in the middle of the abyss. The whale fall ecosystem hints at something even more astonishing. Something that, when it was first discovered, forced scientists to completely rethink the fundamental nature of life itself. In 1977, a team of scientists in the submersible Alvin were exploring the ocean floor near the Galapagos Islands at a depth of approximately 2,500 meters. They were looking for geological formations, evidence of tectonic activity, cracks in the ocean floor. What they found changed biology forever. Emerging from cracks in the sea floor, vents where superheated water, rich in minerals and chemicals, was being expelled from deep within the earth, was life. Abundant, extraordinary life. In a world of complete darkness, thousands of meters below the surface, without any access to sunlight, entire ecosystems were flourishing. Tube worms, Raphia pectiptila, grew in dense clusters around the vents. Some had grown to over 2 meters in length, long white tubes capped with vivid crimson plumes that waved in the chemical-rich water. Giant clams, mats of white bacteria, shrimp, crabs, fish, an entire food web, complete and self-sustaining, in the most hostile conditions imaginable. And at the base of it all, not sunlight, but chemistry. The process is called chemosynthesis, and it is the single most important discovery for understanding the range of life on Earth, and perhaps beyond. In photosynthesis, the process that drives nearly all life on the surface, plants and algae use sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugar. The sun is the ultimate energy source for almost everything that eats, swims, walks, or breathes on the surface of our world. But chemosynthesis uses no sunlight. Instead, certain bacteria and archaea can derive energy from chemical reactions, specifically the oxidation of hydrogen sulfide and other chemicals pouring from the vents. These bacteria form the base of the food chain, and they do it in complete darkness, under crushing pressure, at temperatures that range from near freezing at the edges of the vent field to several hundred degrees Celsius at the vent itself. The implications are staggering. If life can exist not just without sunlight, but without any of the surface conditions we associate with livability, then life may be possible in far more places than we ever imagined. Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, is believed to have a liquid ocean beneath its ice shell. Saturn's moon Enceladus vents water into space. Mars may have had subsurface liquid water. Every hydrothermal vent ecosystem we find on Earth is a proof of concept, a reminder that life is more stubborn, more inventive, and more widespread than we tend to assume. The tube worms that cluster around hydrothermal vents are among the most unusual animals in the world. They have no mouth, no digestive tract, no stomach. As adults, their entire energy supply comes from bacteria that live inside their own body tissue, bacteria that perform chemosynthesis, converting the chemical-rich water that the tube worm absorbs through its plume into energy the worm can use. Worm and bacterium have entered into an agreement so complete that neither can survive without the other. The scientific term is endosymbiosis, a living inside relationship where one organism resides within the tissues of another. But there is something about the tube worm's situation that goes beyond the technical. It has given up the capacity to eat. It has surrendered the act of finding food. It stands, permanently rooted near a superheated crack in the ocean floor, and simply is. Its entire existence is about location, proximity to the vent, access to the chemicals it needs. Move too close and the heat kills it. Move too far and the chemicals thin out. The tube worm occupies a precise ring of survivability around each vent, and within those crowded crimson clusters, swaying slowly in the mineral-rich current, there is an entire microcosm of life. Scale worms crawl among the tubes. Vent crabs pick at the bacterial mats. Vent fish hover, patient and watchful, above the shimmering, heat-distorted water. There is a type of hydrothermal vent environment called a black smoker. From a distance, it looks like an underwater chimney, a tower of minerals, sometimes several meters tall, built up over years as superheated water, laden with dissolved minerals, meets the cold surrounding ocean and causes those minerals to precipitate out of solution. The minerals stack, layer upon layer, forming extraordinary structures. And from the top of those structures, black plumes pour upward. Water so hot it would instantly vaporize if it were not under such immense pressure, carrying particles of iron sulfide and other minerals that make it look, unmistakably, like smoke, rising from a factory chimney on the ocean floor. Temperatures at black smoker vents can reach 400 degrees Celsius and above. And yet, even here at the absolute edge of thermal survivability, life exists. Certain microorganisms, archaea, a domain of life distinct from bacteria, can survive temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius. Some thrive at temperatures that would cook almost anything else alive. These organisms, called hydrothermophiles, have given scientists extraordinary insights into the chemistry of heat tolerance, into the history of life on Earth, and into the possibilities of life elsewhere in the cosmos. Below the Abyssal Plains, in the deep trenches carved by tectonic plates, lies the Hadal Zone, from the Greek word for the underworld, Hades. These are the deepest places on Earth. The Mariana Trench in the western Pacific, the deepest known point, reaches nearly 11,000 meters below the surface. That is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. If you placed Everest at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, its peak would still be over 2 kilometers underwater. Only a handful of human beings have ever descended to the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, known as the Challenger Deep. The first was the explorer Don Walsh, who descended in 1960 in a bathyscaphe called Trieste, alongside oceanographer Jacques Piccard. They reached the bottom and spent about 20 minutes there, peering through a small porthole into a world no human being had ever seen. The pressure at that depth is over 1,000 atmospheres, more than 1,000 times the pressure at sea level. And yet, when James Cameron descended to the Challenger Deep in 2012, alone, in a specially designed submersible, and when subsequent missions returned with sophisticated cameras and instruments, they found life there too. In the Mariana Trench, researchers have found small fish, snailfish of the genus Pseudoliparis, swimming calmly at depths exceeding 8,000 meters. Pale, almost translucent, with no swim bladder, the gas-filled organ that helps fish control buoyancy and which would collapse catastrophically under such pressure. Their bodies have adapted to equalize pressure through entirely different mechanisms, including high concentrations of certain organic molecules called piezolites that help stabilize their proteins under the crushing weight of water above them. In 2023, a snailfish was filmed at a depth of 8,336 meters in the Izu Ogasawara Trench, the deepest fish ever recorded by camera. It was small, unassuming, and appeared to be moving and feeding quite comfortably at a depth that represents one of the most extreme environments on the surface of our planet. The Hadal Zone also contains extraordinary microbial communities, bacteria living in the sediment of the trench floor, processing organic matter and performing chemical transformations in conditions that seem antithetical to life. Even stranger and more troubling, researchers sampling Hadal sediment have found persistent organic pollutants, human-made chemicals, industrial contaminants, even traces of plastic. The deepest, most remote place on Earth has been touched by the surface world. The abyss is not entirely separate from us. And perhaps, in ways we have not yet understood, we are not entirely separate from it. For most of human history, the deep ocean was entirely beyond our reach. The first systematic attempts to measure ocean depth used nothing more sophisticated than a weighted rope, sailors lowering a line hand over hand until it reached the bottom. It was slow. It was inaccurate. It gave no picture what lay below, only how far. The invention of sonar during the 20th century transformed our understanding of ocean topography. Sound waves bouncing off the ocean floor and returning to sensors gave us the first maps of the deep. Maps that revealed mountain ranges as large as any on the continent, and plains as flat and featureless as anything on Earth. But to actually see the deep ocean, to observe and collect and study its creatures, required machines that could survive conditions no human body could. The development of deep-sea submersibles in the mid-20th century was one of the most significant moments in the history of natural history. For the first time, human beings could descend into the abyss in pressurized vessels and observe, directly, the world below. Alvin, the research submersible operated by the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, has been diving since 1964. It was Alvin that discovered hydrothermal vents in 1977, Alvin that explored the wreck of the Titanic in 1986, Alvin that has conducted thousands of dives and returned with thousands of samples and observations. But the most transformative development in deep-sea exploration has been the remotely operated vehicle, the ROV. ROVs are uncrewed submersibles, robots, essentially, connected to a surface ship by a long cable called a tether. They carry lights, cameras, sensors, and manipulator arms. They can dive deeper than any crewed submersible. They can stay down longer, and they can be operated remotely from the surface by a team of scientists watching their feeds on screens. When an ROV dives into the deep ocean and its lights illuminate the water around it, the resulting footage is unlike almost anything else captured on camera. The light creates a sphere of visibility in total darkness. Creatures drift in and out of frame, some curious, some fleeing, some entirely indifferent to the great humming machine in their midst. The camera captures details that could never be observed from a surface ship: body shapes, movements, behaviors, colors. Many of the extraordinary creatures we know about, the barrel-leaf fish with its rotating eyes, the giant siphonophores, the remarkable diversity of deep-sea jellyfish, were first observed in detail through ROV cameras. The footage that comes back from these dives has a particular quality to it. The darkness beyond the light cone. The way creatures behave as if unaware of being watched. The silence of the video. No ambient sound from the deep ocean reaches the surface ship. It is documentary filmmaking at its most genuinely alien. One of the most extraordinary things revealed by ROV surveys is the sheer biodiversity of the deep ocean. Scientists once assumed the deep sea was relatively barren, a cold, dark, food-poor environment that could support only sparse life. That assumption has been dismantled, survey by survey, dive by dive. The deep ocean is teeming. New species are discovered on almost every research expedition. New behaviors, new body forms, new ecological relationships. In some regions of the Abyssal Plain, a single square meter of sediment can contain dozens of species, most of them undescribed, unnamed, and entirely unknown to science. Scientists estimate that the deep ocean may harbor anywhere from 500,000 to 10 million species of organisms. Current estimates suggest we have formally described only a small fraction of them. We are, in a very real sense, exploring an alien world that exists on our own planet. When we speak of the unknown, when we imagine what might lie beyond the explored regions of Earth, the deep ocean is the truest answer. More of the moon's surface has been mapped than the floor of Earth's oceans. More resources have been devoted to exploring Mars than to understanding the abyssal plains that cover more than half of our own planet. There is an irony in that, and perhaps a quiet urgency too. Let us return for a moment to the creatures. Because the catalog of extraordinary deep-sea life is long, and we have only begun to explore it. In the Midnight Zone, there is a creature called the viperfish. The viperfish, Caliotis slowani, is small, only about 30 centimeters long. But its proportions are remarkable. Its teeth are so large relative to its jaw that they cannot fit inside its mouth. They curve up past the face like curved glass needles, giving the viperfish an expression of permanent, slightly unhinged intensity. Like many deep-sea fish, it has photophores along its body, light-producing organs that create a subtle glow in the dark. It uses this bioluminescence to attract prey and possibly to communicate with others of its kind. The viperfish is a vertical migrator, one of many deep-sea animals that travel upward toward the surface each night, following the migration of smaller prey animals, and then descend again as daylight threatens. This daily vertical migration, happening simultaneously across countless species across the entire ocean, is considered the largest migration on Earth by biomass. Every night, in every ocean, an enormous wave of life moves upward through the water column. And every morning, it retreats back into the dark. The dragonfish, another small but ferociously proportioned creature of the Midnight Zone, takes bioluminescence to a remarkable extreme. Most bioluminescent light in the deep ocean is blue or blue-green, the wavelengths that travel farthest through water. But certain dragonfish species can produce and detect red light, a wavelength almost no other creature in the deep ocean can perceive. This gives them a private channel. A dragonfish can illuminate potential prey with red light. Light invisible to the prey, but visible to the dragonfish through its own specialized photoreceptors. It is, in effect, using a flashlight that only it can see. The evolutionary sophistication required to develop both the production and the perception of a private wavelength of light in an environment of total darkness is remarkable. And it speaks to something important about the deep ocean, that the apparent simplicity of total darkness actually drives extraordinary sensory innovation. Without the riot of visual information available at the surface, without color, movement, and ambient light to navigate by, deep-sea creatures have evolved to extract the maximum information from the minimum input. Ears and lateral line systems that detect the faintest vibrations. Chemical senses of extraordinary sensitivity. Eyes evolved to function at the edge of what biology can achieve. The deep is not sensory poverty. It is sensory specialization, taken to extremes. There is one more creature we should mention before we pause here. One that manages to be both deeply strange and quietly beautiful in equal measure. The comb jelly, or sea ctenophore, is one of the oldest animal lineages on Earth. Some estimates place the divergence of sea ctenophores from other animal groups at over 500 million years ago, before the great explosion of animal diversity in the Cambrian. They are not jellyfish, though they resemble them. They move differently, using rows of tiny hair-like cilia, which beat in coordinated waves to propel the animal through the water. And those cilia, as they beat, diffract light in a way that produces a shifting, iridescent rainbow along the animal's body. A cone jelly moving through the water is one of the most purely beautiful things in nature. A transparent, gelatinous body trailing cilia that shimmer with constant moving color. Not bioluminescence. No light is produced, just the physics of light interacting with tiny moving structures. Living light. Moving rainbows. 500 million years old. In the deep ocean, ctenophores drift through the dark, mostly invisible without illumination. But when an ROV light catches them, they ignite with color. Something ancient and patient, carrying its quiet beauty through the permanent night of the abyss. We have descended far, from the sunlit surface through the fading Twilight Zone, past the point where all light disappears, and down through the Midnight Zone with its lantern-bearing hunters, its gelatinous drifters, and its cold light architects. We have passed the edge of the Abyssal Plain, where whale falls create temporary islands of life, and where the rarest giants of the deep drift through a world of perpetual dark. We have glimpsed the hydrothermal vents. Those extraordinary oases of chemosynthetic life that changed our understanding of what life requires to exist. And we have stood, briefly, at the edge of the Hadal Zone, where the trenches cut down deeper than any mountain is tall, and where pale fish move quietly through one of the most extreme environments on Earth. There is so much more still to explore. The creatures we have not yet named, the behaviors we have not yet witnessed, the ecosystems that exist in the deepest, most unreachable corners of the ocean floor, places that no camera has yet illuminated, no instrument has yet measured. The deep ocean keeps its secrets well, but slowly, we are learning to listen. We left the ocean in silence, in the kind of silence that has weight to it. The silence of a world so far beneath the surface that the sounds of ships and storms and whales and wind become, at some point, simply nothing. Down here, the dominant experience is stillness. Not peaceful stillness, not exactly. More like the stillness of a held breath. Awaiting. The stillness of an environment so old and so remote that it operates on a timescale entirely its own. Unhurried, unconcerned, patient beyond any human reckoning. We have seen the bioluminescent hunters and the drifting colonies and the pale fish that navigate a world without light. We have stood at the edges of the Hadal Trenches and imagined the weight of water above. But there is still so much more. The deep ocean is not a single story. It is thousands of stories layered and intertwined, most of them still untold. And so we continue. Not downward any further. We are already as deep as the planet allows, but outward, across the midnight floor, through the dark water, meeting the creatures we have not yet named. There is something about returning to the deep ocean, even in imagination, even in description, that creates a particular feeling, a feeling of scale, of one's own smallness, held without fear. Let the feelings settle. We have time. Of all the creatures in the deep ocean, there is one that seems to arrive from somewhere between a dream and a child's illustration, the Dumbo octopus. It takes its name from the Disney elephant, and the resemblance, once you see it, is immediately clear. Of its soft, rounded body, two large ear-like fins extend and flap slowly as the animal moves through the water. It does not jet propel itself like a squid. It does not crawl along the seafloor like a shallow water octopus. It simply flies. Slowly, gently through the dark water, its fins beating in a steady, unhurried rhythm, like a small, pale bird drifting through a sky with no light and no wind. Dumbo octopuses, members of the genus Grimpateuthis, live at depths ranging from 300 meters to over 4,000 meters. They are among the deepest living octopus species known. They have been observed at depths that would destroy most other animals. And unlike most octopuses, which are solitary and territorial, Dumbo octopuses appear to live relatively quietly, drifting, hovering just above the seafloor, hunting small worms and crustaceans that they swallow whole. They are small, most species reaching between 20 and 30 centimeters, soft and gelatinous, almost translucent in some specimens. And when they are filmed, hovering in the lights of an ROV, their fins beating steadily, they are genuinely, uncommonly beautiful. The intelligence of octopuses is well established in shallow water. Their problem-solving, their tool use, their extraordinary ability to change color and texture to mimic their environment. But deep-sea octopuses like the Dumbo live in such different conditions that direct comparison is difficult. What we do know is that cephalopod intelligence, the neural architecture that makes octopuses so remarkable at the surface, evolved in a marine environment over hundreds of millions of years. And the deep ocean was part of that story. There are octopus-related species in the deep, like the glass octopus, Vitrolidinella richardi, whose body is so transparent that only the eyes and the digestive gland are visible. You can see through its mantle as if it were made of water. It is another form of invisibility, another solution to the challenge of being seen in a world where being seen is dangerous. The glass octopus moves through the mesopelagic and upper bathypelagic zones, and when it is caught in a camera's light, the effect is profoundly strange. A ghost, a creature reduced to its essential organs, eyes and digestion, surrounded by a body you can see directly through. It looks less like an animal than like the memory of one. Drifting. Present. Entirely real. We spoke earlier of the whale fall, that slow transformation of a dead whale into a temporary ecosystem on the ocean floor. And we mentioned that in the final stage, the very bones of the whale are consumed. Let us spend a moment with the creature that does this, Ocedax. Its name comes from the Latin for bone-devouring, is a genus of worm that was only discovered in 2002 during ROV surveys of whale falls off the coast of California. Before that discovery, its existence was simply unknown, not suspected, not theorized, unknown. The Ocedax worm has no mouth, no stomach, no digestive system of its own. Instead, it extends root-like structures, called rhizoids, into the bone itself. These roots are filled with symbiotic bacteria that break down the fats and proteins in the bone, converting them into nutrients the worm can absorb through its tissue. On the surface of the bone, the visible part of the Ocedax worm blooms outward, feathery, colorful plumes extending into the water, waving gently in whatever current passes through. A field of Ocedax worms on a whale skull has a strange, garden-like quality. Delicate and colorful in a world of uniform gray sediment, the Ocedax worm has a reproduction strategy that echoes the anglerfish with its own quiet strangeness. The visible worms on the whalebone, the ones with the colorful plumes, are all female. The males are microscopic, and they live inside the female. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of tiny males, barely more than sperm-producing cells, exist within a gelatinous tube inside the female worm's body. They never develop beyond a rudimentary state. They never feed independently. They exist solely to fertilize the eggs that the female produces. Scientists believe that when an Osedax female first settles on a bone, she releases a chemical signal into the water. Any Osedax larvae that encounter that signal, and which would otherwise develop into females, are suppressed and develop instead into males. The first female to arrive on the bone essentially recruits her own mates from the larvae that follow. It is a system so efficient and so unusual that when it was first described, it attracted significant scientific attention, not just for what it revealed about Osedax, but for what it demonstrated about the versatility of reproductive strategies in extreme environments. The deep ocean does not follow our expectations. It follows its own. Of all the animals associated with the cold and the deep, there is one whose strangeness lies not in its appearance. It is, on the surface, an ordinary-looking shark, but in its relationship with time, the Greenland shark. Sumniosus microcephalus is a large shark, up to 7 meters in length, that inhabits the cold, deep waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic Ocean. It moves extraordinarily slowly. It is often found at depths of well over 1,000 meters, though it also visits shallower waters. Its eyes are frequently clouded by a parasitic copepod, a tiny crustacean that attaches to the cornea and feeds on the eye tissue. Many Greenland sharks are partially or even fully blind as a result. They live in an environment of near total darkness, at temperatures close to freezing, moving at a pace so languid that they have been described as appearing barely alive, and they may be the longest-lived vertebrates on Earth. In 2016, a study published in the journal Science used radiocarbon dating of the eye lens nuclei, tissue that forms at birth and does not regenerate, in Greenland sharks to estimate their ages. The oldest individual in the study was estimated to be approximately 392 years old, with an uncertainty range that extended to over 500 years. 392 years. That shark was alive when Shakespeare was writing his plays, when Galileo was observing the moons of Jupiter, when the great European powers were still establishing their first colonial outposts in the Americas. It has been alive, quietly drifting through the cold, dark water of the North Atlantic for nearly 4 centuries. The Greenland shark reaches sexual maturity at approximately 150 years of age. This means that sharks alive today in the Arctic waters may not yet have reproduced, maybe less than halfway through their lives. The cold slows everything: metabolism, growth, aging. In environments close to freezing, the biochemical processes of life proceed at a glacial rate. Each heartbeat is rarer. Each breath is slower. Each year, each decade, passes in what seems from the outside to be a kind of suspended animation. The Greenland shark does not rush. It has no need to. It scavenges. It occasionally hunts fish, seals, sometimes even reindeer that have apparently fallen into the water. It drifts, and it lives, and lives, and lives. There is something quietly extraordinary about an animal that simply persists, that exists in a world of cold and dark and pressure, and turns those conditions into a kind of immortality. We spoke at length about hydrothermal vents, those extraordinary cracks in the ocean floor where superheated, mineral-rich water creates ecosystems powered by chemistry rather than sunlight. But there is another type of chemosynthetic ecosystem in the deep ocean, less dramatic than the black smokers, but in some ways more quietly unsettling. Cold seeps. Rather than hot water, cold seeps release fluids: water, methane, hydrogen sulfide, at roughly the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. They don't produce billowing plumes or towering mineral chimneys. They simply leak, slowly, from cracks in the seafloor. And yet, like the hydrothermal vents, they support entire ecosystems. The same basic mechanism applies. Chemosynthetic bacteria use the chemical energy in the seeping fluids to produce organic matter. And around that base, a community of animals assembles. Tube worms, sometimes different species than those at hydrothermal vents, cluster around the seep. Mussels with chemosynthetic bacteria in their gills form dense beds on the seafloor. Crabs, shrimp, fish, and free-living bacteria form a complex community. But cold seep communities have one significant difference from hydrothermal vent communities. They last far longer. Hydrothermal vents are geologically active. They can shift, cool, and die over periods of years or decades. The communities they support must adapt to this instability, colonizing new vents when old ones fail. Cold seeps are more stable. They can persist for thousands of years, some for hundreds of thousands. And the organisms that live there have evolved accordingly. The cold seep tube worms of the genus Lamillobrachia are among the longest-lived animals on Earth. Individual specimens have been estimated at over 250 years old and may live longer. Like the Greenland shark, like the deep ocean itself, they have calibrated their existence to a different timescale. There is also something strange about the physical environment of cold seeps, something that adds to their uncanny quality. In areas of high methane seepage, the methane can interact with cold ocean water under pressure to form a substance called methane hydrate, also called methane ice or clathrate. Methane ice or clathrate. Methane ice looks astonishingly like ordinary ice. White, solid, crystalline. But it exists on the ocean floor, thousands of meters below the surface, in the complete darkness of the abyss. And it burns. Methane hydrate brought to the surface and exposed to a flame will ignite, burning with a cold blue fire, while the ice structure itself appears to remain intact. Scientists call it burning ice, ice that burns, on the floor of the deep ocean. The deep ocean keeps offering us images that feel impossible. We tend to imagine the deep ocean as silent, in the way that we imagine all dark, remote places as silent. But the deep ocean is not silent. It has never been silent. Long before humans arrived to fill it with the noise of engines and sonar, the deep ocean had its own language of sound. Sound travels extraordinarily well through water, faster than through air, and over vast distances. The acoustic properties of the deep ocean are unlike anything on the surface world. At a certain depth, called the Sulfur Channel, the sound fixing and ranging channel, sound becomes trapped in a layer of water where it can travel thousands of kilometers with minimal dissipation. This is the channel through which blue whales communicate across ocean basins. Their low-frequency calls, moans that slide down the scale of hearing like something ancient being dragged from great depth, can travel from one side of an ocean to the other. A blue whale calling in the North Atlantic can, under the right conditions, be heard by another whale off the coast of Greenland, or off Iceland, or in historical conditions, before the ocean filled with industrial noise. Perhaps even further, the deep ocean is a concert hall, an enormous, ancient, acoustically perfect concert hall filled with voices we are only beginning to learn how to hear. There is a sound recorded in 1997 that has become, quietly, one of the most discussed acoustic mysteries of the late 20th century. Scientists monitoring hydrophone arrays, underwater microphones maintained by the United States Navy to track submarines, detected an extraordinarily loud, low-frequency sound in the Pacific Ocean. They called it the bloop. The bloop was recorded by multiple sensors separated by thousands of kilometers, meaning the source was both extraordinarily loud and somewhere in the deep Pacific. It matched the frequency profile of biological sounds. It sounded, in other words, like it came from something alive. For years, it attracted speculation. Scientists proposed explanations ranging from giant squid to entirely unknown animals of enormous size. In 2012, NOAA scientists concluded that the bloop was almost certainly caused by ice quakes, the cracking and calving of Antarctic ice, transmitted through the ocean at tremendous volume. And so the mystery has an answer. But the years between the detection and the explanation were years in which the bloop sat in the imagination like an open question. What if something down there were that large? What if an animal of sufficient size existed in the deep Pacific that we had never seen, never caught, never imagined? We know now that the bloop was ice, but the question it asked of what else might exist in the unexplored dark remains. Sharks, as a lineage, are ancient. The first true sharks appeared approximately 450 million years ago, before the dinosaurs, before the great forests, before most of the animal groups we would recognize today. They survived every mass extinction. They outlasted the catastrophes that ended entire worlds of life. And in the deep ocean, there are sharks so ancient in their design that calling them sharks feels almost inadequate. The chimera, sometimes called ghost sharks or ratfish or spruikfish, belongs to a group called Holocephali. They diverged from their shark relatives approximately 400 million years ago. In the deep ocean, they drift through the dark on long, wing-like pectoral fins, gliding with the same dreamlike quality as the Dumbo octopus, but with a distinctly older feeling to them. Their skin is smooth, not the rough tentacle-covered skin of true sharks. Their upper jaw is fused to their skull. Their teeth are fused into plates, giving them a broad, grinding dentition suited to crushing hard-shelled prey. And many species have large, striking eyes that seem disproportionate to their bodies. Ghostly, reflective, slightly luminous in the ROV lights. The deep ocean is a refuge for ancient things that the shallow world left behind. The frilled shark is another of these living anachronisms. It has been called a living fossil, a phrase scientists use cautiously since evolution never truly stops, but one that communicates something real about certain organisms whose fundamental body plan has changed very little over vast spans of time. The frilled shark has a body form that appears in the fossil record hundreds of millions of years ago. Its long, sinuous body, its rows of unusual three-pronged teeth, its head, which sits somewhat below the jawline, giving it a profile unlike any modern shark. It is rarely encountered. Most specimens have been found dead at the surface or in shallow water, presumably having ascended from depth while dying. Living observations in the deep are extraordinarily rare. When a living frilled shark was filmed off the coast of Japan in 2007, the footage circulated widely, partly because of its rarity, but partly because of the animal's movement. It swims in slow, sinuous undulations, more like an eel than a shark. More like something from before the age of fish as we know them. Watching it move is like watching a sentence written in a language that predates language. Something familiar in form, profoundly alien in feeling. The deep ocean holds these ancient lines of life with a kind of quiet fidelity, preserving body plans and strategies that have been tested against time for longer than we can fully comprehend. In 2021, a team of marine biologists studying sharks in the waters off New Zealand confirms something that had been suspected but never fully documented. The kitefin shark, the Latius lycha, is bioluminescent. This was not, in itself, a complete surprise. Several deep-sea shark species had been suspected of bioluminescence. But the kitefin shark's glow was remarkable for one simple reason. At up to 180 centimeters in length, the kitefin shark is the largest known bioluminescent vertebrate on Earth. It glows blue-green from photophores distributed across its belly, the same counter-illumination strategy used by the tiny hatchetfish, but deployed at the scale of an animal the size of a human being. The glow is faint, subtle. But in the absolute darkness of the mesopelagic zone where the kitefin lives, faint is enough. Scientists also noted that the kitefin shark's dorsal fin edge appears to glow slightly differently, possibly acting as a signal to other kitefin sharks in the dark, marking the dorsal fin's position in a way that might communicate presence or intent. A language of light, even among sharks, in the permanent night of the deep. The discovery was a reminder that bioluminescence is not an exception in the deep ocean. It is the rule. The deep ocean is not separate from the world above it. It is connected to it in ways that are intimate, constant, and essential. The ocean absorbs roughly a quarter of all the carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere by human activity. It absorbs more than 90% of the excess heat generated by global warming. It produces more than half of the oxygen in every breath you take. The deep ocean is a critical part of this system. The biological pump, the process by which carbon is fixed in the surface ocean by photosynthetic organisms and then sinks toward the deep when those organisms die, transfers enormous quantities of carbon from the atmosphere to the ocean floor. Marine snow is not simply food for deep-sea creatures. It is a mechanism for carbon sequestration, a slow, constant transfer of atmospheric carbon to the deep ocean, where it may remain for centuries or millennia. The vertical migration we described, those millions of creatures moving upward at night and descending again each morning, also plays a role. As animals feed near the surface and then descend, they carry carbon down with them in their bodies, releasing it at depth through respiration and excretion. They are, in a sense, a living carbon elevator, cycling material between the surface world and the abyss in ways that help regulate the chemistry of the atmosphere itself. The deep ocean also regulates the circulation of water across the entire planet. Deep water forms when surface water in polar regions becomes cold and dense, particularly in the North Atlantic and around Antarctica, and sinks. This cold, dense water flows along the ocean floor across enormous distances before eventually rising again elsewhere. The process is called thermohaline circulation. It connects the oceans of the world in a single, slow-moving conveyor belt of water, carrying heat from the tropics toward the poles and cold, deep water from the poles toward the equator. It influences rainfall patterns. It moderates temperatures in coastal regions. It distributes nutrients across the globe. The Gulf Stream, which keeps Western Europe significantly warmer than its latitude would otherwise allow, is part of this system. The deep ocean is not merely a place where strange creatures live. It is the engine of Earth's climate. A system so vast and so interconnected that changes in one part, warming temperatures, melting ice, shifts in salinity, ripple outward in ways that affect every ecosystem on the planet, including ours. The deep ocean keeps the surface world livable. It has done so, quietly, for billions of years. And we are only now beginning to understand the full depth of that relationship. There is a question that sits beneath all of this exploration and discovery. A quiet, persistent question. What else is down there? The deep ocean covers over 60% of the Earth's surface. Most of it has never been directly observed. The survey maps we have are largely acoustic, based on sonar, which tells us topography but nothing about life. The actual area of seafloor that has been directly observed by camera or ROV is staggeringly small. Scientists estimate that we have high-resolution imagery or direct observation of less than 1% of the deep ocean floor. Less than 1%. In that 1%, we have found new species on nearly every expedition. We have found ecosystems no one predicted. We have found body plans that required the rewriting of taxonomy. We have found behaviors that overturned long-standing assumptions. If that is what 1% looks like, the imagination can barely hold the arithmetic of the remaining 99. There may be animals larger than the giant squid that we have never observed. There may be entire ecosystems, built around geological features we haven't yet mapped, that contain organisms with no known relatives. There may be forms of life, biochemical strategies, evolutionary innovations that would require entirely new frameworks to understand. The history of deep-sea exploration is full of moments that underline this point. In 1976, a previously unknown species of shark, the megamouth shark, Megachasma pelagios, was accidentally discovered when one became entangled in the sea anchor of a United States Navy research vessel. It was enormous, nearly 5 meters long. With an extraordinary gaping mouth lined with bioluminescent tissue inside the lips, possibly used to attract the small crustaceans it filtered from the water. It was an entirely unknown species of large shark that had simply never been seen. Not because it was exceedingly rare necessarily, but because we had never been in the right place, with the right instruments, at the right depth. Since 1976, only a few hundred megamouth sharks had been documented. They appear to be deep divers, descending to several hundred meters during the day and ascending at night to feed. They have been among us all along, inhabiting the same ocean we have sailed and fished for millennia. Simply invisible. Simply down there. The discovery of the megamouth was not an anomaly. It was a reminder of how much ocean there is, of how little of it we have truly seen. There is a shadow over the deep ocean, and it comes from us. We mentioned earlier that researchers sampling the Mariana Trench found human-made pollutants, industrial chemicals, plastics, in the sediment of the deepest place on Earth. This is not an isolated finding. Studies of the Hadal Zone in multiple trenches have found persistent organic pollutants at concentrations higher than expected, higher, in some cases, than in heavily polluted coastal waters. The reason is straightforward and troubling. Marine snow carries these pollutants downward. Tiny particles of plastic, microplastics, fragments of plastic smaller than a grain of rice, drift down through the water column and accumulate on the abyssal floor. The same biological pump that transfers carbon to the deep also transfers everything else that finds its way into the surface ocean. Animals in the Hadal Zone have been found with plastics in their digestive systems, creatures that have never been seen, that live in conditions we barely understand, that have evolved over hundreds of millions of years in a world entirely separate from the surface. And they have microplastics in their gut. The deep ocean is remote, but it is not separate. What we put into the surface world eventually arrives in the deepest place on Earth. There is also a growing interest among certain industrial groups in mining the deep ocean floor. The Abyssal Plains are covered with objects called polymetallic nodules, rounded concretions of minerals, ranging in size from a marble to a grapefruit. that form extremely slowly over millions of years around small nuclei on the ocean floor. They are rich in manganese, cobalt, nickel, copper, metals with enormous value in the manufacturing of batteries and electronic components. The economic incentive to mine them is significant, and several companies and nations have been developing technologies to do so. But the ecological concern is equally significant. The communities of organisms that live on and around these nodules, some found nowhere else in the world, would be destroyed by mining activity. The sediment plumes generated by seafloor mining could drift across enormous areas, smothering filter feeders and disrupting ecosystems that have never been documented. We would be extracting resources from a world we do not yet understand, potentially destroying species we have not yet discovered. The conversation about deep-sea mining is happening now, in international bodies, in scientific communities, in policy circles. It is a conversation about whether what lies in the darkness has value beyond the materials we might extract from it, about whether the unknown itself is worth protecting. There is another side to this question of value, one that points not toward extraction but toward discovery. The biochemistry of deep-sea organisms is extraordinary, and it has already produced compounds of significant medical and scientific importance. Organisms living in extreme environments have evolved enzymes and biochemical pathways that function under conditions: high pressure, low temperature, high chemical concentration, that would break down enzymes from surface organisms. These extremophile enzymes have become invaluable tools in biotechnology and medicine. The most famous example is Toc polymerase, an enzyme derived from a thermophilic bacterium found in a hot spring, not the deep ocean, but part of the same category of extremophile chemistry, which became the basis for the polymerase chain reaction, or PCR. PCR is the technology that underlies modern genetic testing, forensic analysis, and, most recently, the rapid development of diagnostic tests for COVID-19. A discovery from an extreme environment, made during pure scientific curiosity, became a pillar of modern medicine. Deep-sea organisms are now being studied as potential sources of anti-cancer compounds, antibiotics, enzymes for industrial processes, and materials with unique structural properties. The deep ocean is a library of 4 billion years of biochemical innovation, and we have read only the first few pages. There is a particular kind of wonder that the deep ocean produces, different from the wonder of space, though the two are often compared. Space is distant. Its strangeness arrives to us, filtered through immense time and distance. Light from stars millions of light years away. The silence of the vacuum. The clean geometry of orbital mechanics. The deep ocean is here, on this planet, beneath the surface of the same Earth you stand on. A few thousand meters of water separate you from a world as alien as anything in the known universe. The deep ocean's wonder is intimate. It is the wonder of an undiscovered room in a house you thought you knew. It is the wonder of realizing that the familiar world you inhabit contains, within its depths, something entirely beyond your previous imagination. And this creates a particular feeling, one that is hard to name exactly. Something between humility and astonishment. Something between the smallness of realizing you knew so little and the expansiveness of realizing how much there is still to know. The deep ocean is a place that earns wonder through proximity, not through distance. The scientists who study the deep ocean speak about it in ways that suggest this feeling never entirely fades. Even after years of ROV dives, after thousands of hours of deep-sea footage reviewed and analyzed, after careers built on the systematic description of creatures from the abyss, there is still, consistently, the response of a person encountering something genuinely new. A catch of breath, a slight leaning forward, the quiet, involuntary expression of encountering the unexpected. Edith Witter, one of the world's foremost researchers of bioluminescence, whose work helped capture the first footage of a giant squid in the wild, has described the deep ocean as the most unexplored and important habitat on Earth, and has spoken about the feeling of watching bioluminescent animals respond to each other's light signals in the dark. The sense of observing communication in a language entirely different from our own. It is not merely scientific. It is, she and others have suggested, something closer to encountering another kind of mind. Not human, not structured like anything we recognize, but present, active, responding to the world. The deep ocean is full of minds, of sorts, that we have barely acknowledged. We have been down here for a long time, in the cold, in the dark, moving slowly through a world that measures time differently. And now, gradually, let us begin to rise. Not quickly. There is no hurry. The ascent from the deep ocean, in the real world of submersibles and ROVs, takes hours. The pressure must decrease slowly. The temperature changes. The darkness begins, almost imperceptibly at first, to lighten. At 4,000 meters, the abyssal plain recedes below. We pass the scattered lights of the midnight zone, the brief flickers and pulses of bioluminescent creatures going about their patient lives in the permanent dark. At 2,000 meters, the darkness is still complete, but the feel of the water changes almost imperceptibly. A distant sense of something, some faint gradient above. At 1,000 meters, the Twilight Zone begins, and for the first time in a long descent, there is light again. Not bright, not warm. A cold, faint blue-gray glow filtering down from somewhere impossibly far above. But light. The first suggestion that there is a surface to this world, that the darkness has a ceiling. The creatures of the Twilight Zone move around us as we ascend. The hatchetfish, with their upward-pointing eyes, scanning the dim light above for silhouettes. The lanternfish, small, beautiful, covered in photophores that make them look like tiny decorated ornaments, moving in schools that extend across miles of ocean. Lanternfish, of the family Myctophidae, are among the most abundant fish in the world. Their total biomass in the ocean is staggering. Estimates range into hundreds of millions of tons. They are food for tuna, swordfish, seabirds, and whales, and almost no one has heard of them. They are a foundational piece of the ocean's food web, a bridge between the surface world and the deep, carrying energy and carbon, upward and downward in their daily migrations, and they exist in near total anonymity. The mesopelagic is full of these invisible abundances, animals so numerous and so central to the ocean's functioning that their significance dwarfs their fame. A reminder that importance and visibility are very different things, that the unseen is not, for that reason, unimportant. Perhaps the least known creatures on Earth are keeping this planet alive. At 500 meters, the light is stronger now. The color of the water shifts from black to deep blue to something approaching the color of ink. At 200 meters, we approach the boundary, the thermocline, where the temperature changes sharply as we move from the cold of the deep into the warmer surface waters. The pycnocline, where the density of the water shifts. These are real physical boundaries in the ocean, lines where the properties of the water change enough to act almost as barriers, inhibiting the mixing of deep and surface water except in specific circumstances. They separate worlds, And as we pass through them, ascending slowly, through the blue we can feel the change. The water warming, the light brightening, the world becoming, degree by degree, more familiar. At 100 meters, we can see the surface above. A silver ceiling, rippled by whatever wind is moving across the ocean today. The light filters down in shafts and columns. We can see the silhouettes of things above us, shapes moving through the light. Fish, a school of them, turning in unison, catching the light on their scales, disappearing into the blue, breaking the surface. Even in imagination is a different experience when you have spent time below. The light is almost overwhelming. The warmth, the sound of wind and wave. The merciful pilots and oceanographers who have spent hours or days in the deep ocean describe the return to the surface as profoundly disorienting. The sensory world of the surface, its color, its movement, its noise, becomes strange after the absolute quiet of the abyss. Some describe needing time to readjust, to remember what ordinary light looks like, what a horizon feels like. It suggests something about perspective, that spending time in a fundamentally different environment, even vicariously, changes how the familiar looks on return. The surface ocean, that familiar, beautiful, sunlit place, looks different when you know what lies beneath it. When you know that beneath every stretch of blue water, beneath every wave that has ever curled and broken on a shore, there are layers upon layers of life, extending downward into a darkness, that most of that life has never left, that the ocean you see is only the thinnest skin over a world of extraordinary depth, that the surface is, in a sense, the ceiling of something else entirely. There is a version of this story that is purely scientific, a catalog of discoveries, a taxonomy of remarkable creatures, a summary of biochemical innovations and ecological relationships. That version is true and important. But there is another version that feels equally true, one that is harder to articulate. The deep ocean teaches us about the limits of our imagination. Every creature we have encountered in this journey, the anglerfish and its fused male, the siphonophore that is simultaneously one animal and many, the tube worm that has traded its mouth for an interior garden of bacteria, the Greenland shark, moving through the cold dark for 4 centuries, represents a solution to the problem of life that we would not have predicted, we would not have imagined them. If asked to design organisms for the deep ocean, before we knew what lived there, we would have produced things far less extraordinary than what actually exists. Evolution, operating over vast stretches of time in conditions of extreme selection pressure, is more creative than we are. It explores possibilities that don't occur to us. It finds solutions we would not have considered. And the deep ocean is its laboratory, closed, dark, pressured, ancient. A place where the experiment of life has been running, undisturbed, for far longer than we have existed. The deep ocean also teaches us about resilience. Life, as we have seen, exists in conditions that should, by any reasonable prior assumption, make it impossible. Crushing pressure, absolute darkness, near freezing temperatures, chemical environments that are toxic to most organisms, the absence of sunlight, that apparent prerequisite for all energy in the living world. And in every one of those conditions, life has found a way. Not through struggle exactly, not despite its environment, but with it, using its conditions, incorporating its chemistry, fitting into its rhythms. The tube worm does not fight the pressure. It is built for it. The Greenland shark does not resist the cold. The cold has become its lifespan, its pace, its centuries. The deep ocean suggests that life, given enough time, will find a way to inhabit almost any environment that is not outright lethal, and sometimes pushes even that boundary. This is not merely an observation about biology. It is something larger, about adaptability, about the relationship between an organism and the world it inhabits, about the way that what seems like a constraint from the outside becomes, from within, the very structure of a life. It is late, wherever you are right now, in a bed, in a quiet room, in the small dark hours of the night. The ocean is still there, covering most of the surface of this planet, moving slowly in its great circulations, carrying its communities of life through layers of cold and pressure and perpetual dark. Right now, at this exact moment, a dragonfish is drifting through the midnight zone with its private red lantern. A Greenland shark is moving, barely faster than a walking pace, through cold Arctic water that has been dark since long before you were born. A Dumbo octopus is gliding on its small pale fins above a seafloor that has not seen light in millions of years. A siphonophore is pulsing, slowly, steadily, stretching its improbable length through the dark. A field of tube worms is swaying near a vent, their crimson plumes moving in a current of superheated water. And somewhere in the deep Pacific, or the Indian Ocean, or the South Atlantic, there is almost certainly an animal moving through the water that no human being has ever seen. No name, no description, no photograph, just there, in the dark, alive. There is something calming in that thought, if you let it settle. The world is larger than we know. The life on this planet is stranger and more abundant than we have yet fully grasped. The ocean, which covers 3/4 of our world, contains depths and distances and creatures that exist entirely apart from human observation, human names, human concern. They were here before us, and in some form, life in the deep adapts and persists through even the most dramatic surface changes. Life in the deep ocean will likely outlast us. The deep ocean has survived 5 mass extinction events. The asteroid that ended the dinosaurs. The Great Oxidation Event that changed the atmosphere. The Snowball Earth episodes. The Permian extinction, which wiped out over 90% of marine species. Each time, something survived in the deep. Some thread of life, some community in the dark, that persisted through the catastrophe and repopulated the world above when conditions allowed. The deep ocean is not just a habitat, it is a refuge, a living archive of everything that has managed to survive. And perhaps this is the deepest thing the deep ocean has to offer us. Not the individual creatures, extraordinary as they are, not the ecosystems, or the chemistry or the implications for medicine or astrobiology, but the perspective. A view of life as something vaster and more resilient and more creative than any single moment of it suggests. A view of the planet as something with depths we have not plumbed, secrets we have not uncovered, stories we have not yet had the tools or the time or the humility to listen to. We are surface creatures. We live in the light and the warmth and the air. We navigate by sunlight and star maps. We build our cities near shorelines, looking out at the ocean's surface as if it were a boundary. But it is not a boundary. It is a beginning. The surface of the ocean is where our world ends and another world starts. A world that has been running its own story, in its own time, by its own rules, for longer than we have been here to notice. Think of the anglerfish drifting in the dark. Its small, cold light bobbing in the current. Patient, unhurried, waiting in a world without seasons, without days, without the rhythms we organize our lives around. Its entire existence calibrated to a different frequency. Think of the comb jelly, 500 million years old as a lineage, pulsing its iridescent colors through the deep, colors that no one sees, colors that exist for no audience, just physics and biology happening in the dark, because that is what they do. Think of the Greenland shark, somewhere in the Arctic water tonight, doing what it has been doing for 300-400 years, moving, breathing, being, without reference to anything above the surface, without awareness of us or our concerns or the particular night we find ourselves in. There is something deeply restful in these images, something that invites us to release, if only for a moment, our own particular weight, to set down the specific gravity of our specific hour and float, briefly, in something much older and much larger. The deep ocean carries that invitation, always. The ocean is darkest before the dawn, not in the deep. The deep has no dawn, no knowledge of it, no need for it. But at the surface, in those final hours before the light returns, the water is at its most still and its most opaque. The bioluminescence, if the conditions are right, is at its most visible in this darkest hour. In certain places in the world, off the coast of Puerto Rico, in the waters near New Zealand, in bays and inlets where conditions concentrate the dinoflagellates, the water glows. Not the dim, uncertain glow of a screen, a true, vivid, living blue light. Each disturbance in the water, a wave, a swimming fish, the wake of a boat, releasing brief, brilliant clouds of cold fire. People who have swum in bioluminescent bays describe the experience in terms that reach for something beyond ordinary language. The sensation of being surrounded by living light, of moving through water that responds to your movement with illumination, of feeling, briefly, as if you are part of something alive in a way that goes beyond the usual understanding of the word. This is what the deep ocean offers, even at the surface. The sense of being at the edge of something much larger than yourself. There is a phrase sometimes used by ocean scientists. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the floor of our own ocean. It is meant to highlight the irony of our priorities. The vast expenditure of resources on space exploration, set against the relative neglect of the deep ocean sitting here, on this planet, accessible in principle if not yet in practice. But I think there is another way to hear that phrase, not as criticism, as wonder. As a genuine, astonishing fact about the world we inhabit. We live on a planet where the most alien environment in the known solar system is right here, beneath us, accessible by ocean, a few thousand meters below the surface. We do not need to travel to another world to encounter the truly strange. We need only go down through the warmth and the light. through the fading blue, through the cold and the dark and the pressure, to the place where the anglerfish drifts with its lantern, where the siphonophore pulses in the permanent night, where the tube worms sway in the heat of the earth's own breath. It is still there right now, all of it. While you are here, in the warmth and the quiet, while the ordinary night passes above the ordinary land, the deep ocean is continuing its long, slow, lightless story. Creatures are being born in water too cold and too dark for most life to survive. Animals are hunting with light and chemistry and senses we don't have names for. The biological pump is moving carbon toward the floor. The thermohaline circulation is carrying water across ocean basins. A whale fall somewhere is in its second year of slow decomposition, surrounded by a temporary garden of life. A Greenland shark is moving through the Arctic water at a pace slower than you walk. A Dumbo octopus is flying, gently, absurdly, beautifully, on its small pale fins above a seafloor that has never been photographed. The deep ocean does not wait for us to look. It simply continues, patient and ancient and full of life, in the dark. Let the image settle. The ocean spreading out across most of the Earth's surface in every direction, its surface catching whatever moonlight there is tonight, moving in slow swells, dark and vast and present, and beneath that surface, the layers descending. The sunlit zone, warm and blue. The twilight zone, fading. The midnight zone, lit only by the living. The abyss, quiet and cold. And deeper still, the trenches, the long dark slots in the ocean floor where the planet folds down into itself. All of it alive, all of it moving, all of it patient, so profoundly, deeply patient, in the dark. The story for tonight has reached its quiet end, but your journey doesn't have to. If you find yourself lingering here, in the space between wakefulness and rest, know that there is no rush. Stay here and allow the calm to carry you forward, and if your curiosity is still softly humming, another world of quiet knowledge is waiting for you on your screen right now. Let the next story carry you a little further into the calm, until the words eventually turn into dreams.